Uh,
Cool. There we go.
Mostly. All right, there we go. All right, so back with another movie I didn't hear about until you suggested it to me, uh, which pairs off nicely with The Rental, which is another one Muhan's like, hey, you want to watch this tonight? Sure.
Yeah.
I don't even know what this is, but I'll watch anything. I don't care. So this is Relic, not to confuse with the 1997 version, as it turns out that
Yeah,
exists.
The Relic, which was a movie I think with Jennifer Lopez and I want to say Vince Vaughn.
Sure. I don't know
Okay.
anything about it.
Okay, I gotta
So
check.
I knew.
Oh, now I remember. That was the Tarzan singing, "Look at me, look at me." It was that one of those movies.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I totally forgot that he directed that. Oh wait, no. Wait, which one? Wait, what's the one that? No, this is Peter Hyam. Okay, I'm thinking of a completely different movie.
Either way, we're not talking about that Relic.
Yeah.
We're talking about the one that came out this year, apparently. When did this officially come out? Was this is a new release or?
Yeah, it's in theaters right now.
Wait, there are theaters?
In theaters.
You gave me like a small spark of hope there for a second.
Yeah.
Theaters?
Yeah.
Where are the theaters, Grant? Tell me about the rabbits.
Last time I was in the theaters was when I saw The Invisible Man.
I think last time we saw, like, right before Shelter in Place kicked in was, like, Onward, I think was the very last one we saw.
Yeah.
Oh, God, in the before time.
Yeah, all I remember was that it was, like, when people were still freaking out, so it was just me and my friend, and it was great, because we just made a bunch of immature jokes, like, throughout the entire movie.
So, this one is not The Invisible Man.
Nope.
This one is This one is Relic. Why don't you start off? Like, what did you think about this?
This movie hit me a little hard there in the end. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay. The ending was the strongest part. I will give it that.
Yeah.
Now this movie does center around dementia. It's like about Emily Mortimer and her daughter go up to visit Emily Mortimer's mom, who is suffering from dementia and is kind of slowly getting to the point where she can't take care of herself.
Yeah, because it was Edna was the grandmother, Kay was the mother, and the granddaughter was Sammy. She was played by Bella Heathcote.
I'm not familiar with her.
I've seen her in a couple of things. I can never remember where I've seen any of these actors before, and it's kind of bugs the crap out of me. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, I know I've seen Emily Mortimer.
Yeah, you're mentioning how she was in Cars 2.
Oh, she was in Newsweek.
Yeah, I've not watched that movie. That's why I know of it.
The show, not the movie.
Okay, now I remember where I saw her in. It was in Bella Heathcote was in Pride and Prejudice and Zombies.
Oh yeah, we did see that.
Oh.
I remember nothing about it.
Oh, she's also a Man in the High Castle.
Oh,
And Professor Marston and the Wonder Women.
I want to see that one.
Same here. I've heard great things about it. I know it's on Hulu, so I'll probably check it out there.
Yeah, I know the real life story of the man who made Wonder Woman is kind of insane.
Yeah, although apparently it's not quite as insane because, like, I guess the people were just like, yeah, there was no, like, three-way love triangle that was going on. Well, I mean, there was, but not the point where, like, the women were dating each other, too.
Well, maybe not that, but we also know he invented the lie detector, so...
Yeah, like that, yeah, and also had a huge thing for BDSM, which is why... Oh, now I know where I saw the old lady in.
What?
Good movie, huh?
Wait, for real?
She was in Gods of Egypt. She's also in a couple of the Matrix movies, but yeah, she was in Gods of Egypt. Oh, good lord.
That's another one I barely remember. The only thing I remember anything from that movie is just the woman's reaction at the end.
Pretty good, huh?
Call back to a review from like 5 years ago for those wondering. You can go back and look at it.
That was a thing where we had to try not to laugh and be dicks.
We ran to the car. Just like, dude, shut up. But yeah, the Relic. So like, and then like while they're there trying to deal with her mom, there's like something more supernatural going on that involves a lot of mold, and it's all metaphor and yada yada yada. And that's like the Cliff Notes version of the movie in a nutshell. I want to hear your thoughts on this too, because I know you mentioned you had like a bit more personal connection with the subject matter than I do.
Yeah. For me, it's like this is the case of the horror is not from what's going on in the house, but the horror of the fact that like this, like despite the supernatural elements, feels real, believable that it can kind of happen to anyone, as well as kind of that weird fear of it happening, like not just to. God, I'm trying to think of how not. There's going to be some spoilers here. That's there's no way around it. Because like my grandmother had some dementia, I think. Like it wasn't as full blown as this, thank God, but like there was a lot of relatable moments in terms of that whole, kind of knowing those smaller things that are being forgotten. That weird feeling that you're being forgotten. And I guess as well as those fears that it's gonna happen to you at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Which the ending was kind of hinting at.
Yeah, I got that too.
So I mean, it felt very relatable in that regards too, because like I'm not gonna lie, that shit terrifies the living hell out of me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of sorry.
It's okay. I'll take over for a bit if you want.
Idea of forgetting and being forgotten, and just kind of becoming just at the end of it all a husk.
Yeah.
And in some weird way, they did a really good job of giving it a very good metaphysical representation.
Yeah. No, the ending was definitely the best part of the movie. When it works to tell that part of the story, I thought I did very well. You okay there, man? Do you need a minute? Okay. But yeah, like I think when it got to the main metaphor at the very end, it's like okay, so at least it all came together. I don't know how well the individual pieces. Oh, Grant, are you there?
Yeah, that thing's kind of it spazzed out there for a second.
All right, cool. Just making sure. Oh no, it's happening again.
Your end or mine?
Okay, there we go. Are you there? Testing.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, cool. Just making sure. Clearly, we're in the high production quality stage of COVID. And there he goes again. There he goes.
Well, I'm gonna get back out and get back in because it's mentioning poor connection. I'm not sure if it's on your end or my end.
I'm not getting the poor connection, so I'm guessing it's on your end. Am I just talking to myself now? I guess so. Grant?
There we go. Yeah, I just had to do a little.
God damn it. Hey, buddy. How you doing? You look a little frozen. There you go.
Yeah, something's up with my internet.
Do you want to pause the recording for a second and deal with it? I'm going to pause the record for a second so you can deal with it. All right, and we're back.
Sorry, we had to deal with the wonders of Skype and the interwebs.
Technical issues. I don't know. We have those little signs. But anyway, where were we? Oh yeah.
Yeah, you were talking about how the ending kind of clicked for you there in the.
The third act was very good. I'm not sure the slow burn up until then fully worked for me. I'll be curious on your thoughts on that.
I was fine with it because it was definitely a thing of where they're trying to showcase. Because I think they kind of had to implement the drama first to show just like how things were kind of progressing. Which, as I said, they're definitely going for a more realistic take on this, despite the kind of like supernatural, spooky horror stuff that was going on, and kind of showing, the stuff that everyone kind of goes through when their family's dealing with this kind of thing.
Yeah, I think for me it's more like I just didn't really find Kate and Sammy like that compelling of characters to really be that interested in the slow burn. Not that the subject matter isn't compelling in its own way. It's more like, okay, I'm following these people and I'm not really like, again, it does not help. I just saw another slow burn movie recently, First Reform, that had a way more compelling main character.
Fair enough.
So like I think that definitely kind of worked against it, which isn't really a fair criticism. I acknowledge that. But it did lead to more like, okay, it's like they're good, but they felt almost kind of basic in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
The most interesting character, of course, was the grandma for obvious reasons. She is the focal point. She is in which the whole plot is surrounded.
Yeah.
We follow Emily Mortimer's character the most, though.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of long stretches with her character where I don't want to say didn't feel invested, just wasn't that interested.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, it's understandable. Because, I think I was more intrigued with just, like, the relatability and the believability of everything and just kind of the, I guess, frustration of not knowing what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is one of the big things, which I thought they had some very interesting, in every case, there's some interesting points. The whole idea of what's better, putting someone in a home where they can actually be monitored, being the one to actually take care of them. What shows that you love them more in, like, trying to give them the right care? Because it... You know what it kind of reminds me of? It reminded me of the opening of Firewatch.
Okay.
And yeah, that's also why I haven't played that game that much, because that opening just wrecked me.
Understandable.
Firewatch
is also a very character-driven game, though, where every character kind of gets their moment in the sun. I didn't really feel that with this.
Which is fair.
Like particularly with Sammy, she has a couple moments of development, but really not a lot. Like for at least until like the second act, she's just kind of there. And the most interesting thing that she does is, this is going to spoiler territory, is when she does offer to move into her grandma's house on her behalf, but that subplot's also very quickly dropped.
Yeah.
So it's like, and again, this is where a case where I'm trying to like take it with respect to the source material, while also trying to look at it objectively as a movie.
Yeah.
So it's definitely I apologize to something that's unintentionally insensitive.
Yeah. I definitely get what you mean, though. Definitely that slow burn, stuff doesn't help. Although I think at the same time with Sammy, a part of me wonders if that was kind of intentionally done, like to try and emphasize the fact that she's pretty much powerless in this kind of situation.
If that was the intention, I didn't feel like it was conveyed strongly enough. Because I feel like she doesn't really have a lot of her own agency, and she's one of like three characters that appears consistently through the entire film.
Yeah.
I'll say Emily Mortimer definitely has agency. Her character like motivations are very, very clear. I just didn't find her the most compelling.
Yeah.
So I think like a bit of like another run through of the script and kind of make those characters more interesting would have definitely benefited the movie a lot. Like all the stuff with the mom is fine. Like is done really well. I was almost a little worried towards the end, and then they kind of did the twist when Emily Mortimer takes her back upstairs. Like, oh, okay, they're not going the villainize everyone that has dementia route. Thank God.
Yeah.
Although I was a little taken aback. Was like, oh, are they just straight up saying people with dementia are just gonna try to murder you at some point?
No, I know they were. It was definitely trying to emphasize like what the battle feels like. Mm-hmm. That whole idea of, I can't think of the best way to describe it, but like it. That's one of the things where they like someone emphasize they'll feel you like it's just like it's one of the most physically draining and exhausting things you do. And like as I mentioned, the whole walls closing in on you thing, the whole deal. That was kind of, I guess for some people that probably is a good way to describe it, not just for the people who are dealing with the thing, but how that whole idea of some people are trying to figure out what to do and how to help this person. Like, is this going to be my life? Is this going to be? It's, yeah. So it definitely was a extreme way to express how everything felt, but in a weird way, it is also a fairly accurate one.
Yeah, and I think when it relied more on metaphorical imagery, I think is when it worked the best.
Yeah.
I think, and at least that's when all the pieces kind of came together. You can see where it's going. Yeah, really, like my gripe isn't with the third act of the movie at all, because I think, especially when they kind of had the moment at the very end where it's like, okay, so they're not villainizing; they're saying like this is the way it should be done. It's a hard battle. I can see where it's going from from an outsider's perspective.
Yeah.
I think just the build up to it was not quite interesting enough to justify the slow burn nature of it. If that makes sense. And that's what I think is part of the movie in general.
It does. I mean, because that's something I'll say is like slow burn horror like that is definitely a risk.
It's hard to do. It's hard to do. Because it doesn't really have to feel like it's building it up to something. The characters have to react in kind.
Yeah.
And I don't think like the way this character reacted really effectively built that up, other than the occasional like spooky moment that will happen that reminds you that something supernatural is kind of happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, that's me just being an asshole. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was also the other thing that I just started to realize, like partway through, was in like some weird way that house was trying to teach them empathy in some weird, messed up way.
I'm not sure I got that personally.
Yeah.
Maybe that's something I would like. Maybe that's something I would have to watch again to get that. Because if that's trying to teach empathy, that's a pretty roundabout way to go about.
Well, I mean, not empathy might be a strong word, but it like as I said, once again, it was the fact that like they were experiencing what she was kind of experiencing in like in a more metaphysical way. That whole idea that like they were kind of dealing with the whole being lost thing, the idea of it's
think about compassion is what you're talking.
Yeah, probably that's a better way to put it.
I can see that.
Yeah. I may have picked a wrong word choice. Like, I wasn't trying to teach them that, but like in a weird way, they were definitely experiencing what she was going through, like in some really weird way, like how they were kind of trying to navigate the home and like trying to figure out where the hell they were and what was going on and all that stuff, and even the being isolated and being alone elements.
I can see where you're coming from on that. I still kind of see it as a kind of a roundabout way to try to teach somebody compassion about somebody.
Yeah. I'm not. That's why I said it was probably a bad word choice thing. Like, it was trying to teach. Like, saying that I was trying to teach them probably wasn't the best word choice on my part.
Although it does remind me of an interesting story from college. Is the way that's how my abnormal psychology teacher taught us about anxiety disorders. Did I ever tell you the story?
I don't think you did. No.
He was a very unorthodox teacher. He had this great little lesson where he's talking about like, we're talking about anxiety disorders today. But first things first, I want you to turn over the quizzes you just filled out, you just finished, and I want you to write down something that gives you anxiety and how you overcome it. So we're all sitting there, we're super focused, writing stuff down, and then in the middle of it, he just goes, "Stop!" and he slams this big heavy ass book on the table as loud as he can. Everyone like bursts up and like stares out, and looks at him and goes, "That anxiety just felt? That's your feeling after 20 minutes at a time. That's an anxiety disorder." It's like, I don't care what you wrote. I just want to catch you off guard.
Right.
They ended that with like, "And now you'll never trust me again."
Thanks a lot, Willy Wonka, you dick.
Pretty much. But my point of bringing that story up is like, I get what you're saying and like trying to make someone more compassionate towards a situation they might not have full context for by presenting similar scenarios.
Yeah.
It still kind of strikes me as a dick move on the part of the house.
Yeah.
And kind of like, but I can see where they're going with that. I feel like if they wanted to go that route, if they were doing that intentionally, I think there might be smarter ways to go about it to convey that more clearly.
Yeah.
Because that is an interesting idea, and that's an interesting concept. For me personally, I didn't really feel it carried over, but it is an interesting idea. The compassionate teacher house.
Yeah. Or it could have, as you know, or it could have just been just general manifestations as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm more willing to buy.
Yeah, the idea. Yeah, that's why I said like trying to teach was probably a bad word. Not the right thing to have said because it's. I don't think the house was living and like trying to trying to show it. It's just. It was probably just a byproduct of like the thing that was going on with the grandmother.
I mean, the movie continuously references like comparing it to an infestation or like a infection.
Yeah, there's also which I think is also why they picked the black mold because I think they said that actually is a side effect of constant exposure to that. Mm-hmm. Is it actually can cause like dementia, Alzheimer's like effects, memory loss, things like that. Because I believe I remember hearing how that for some people that created that actually results in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was if we're getting super nitpicky, that was one thing that kind of annoyed me. Is like, stop fucking touching the black mold. Did nobody ever teach you about black mold ever?
Yeah,
in your life.
So I was joking, like, don't touch it, don't lick it. Yeah. Thankfully, no one did, but still, it's like
no, it's more just like that's a really bad. What? Don't no. Wash your hands. Don't touch anything else. That's super nitpicky. I fully acknowledge that, but that's one thing that just annoyed me because they kept doing it. Stop touching the mold. But anyway, no, I definitely get what this movie was going for. I just felt like it could have done more strongly, in my opinion.
Which is fair. With that in mind, though, I am glad they kept it like an hour and a half to like make it so it wasn't like too drawn out either.
Yeah, for sure. No, like it's a good length.
That was the weird thing. It's like it felt like the movie actually, despite the slow burn, moved at a very brisk pace for me.
For me, it dragged a few portions.
Because when I was at that third act, I was like, "Oh Jesus Christ! It's already been an hour 7."
Yeah, I can see that. Like, I think there were a few moments that kind of dragged for me, but overall, yeah, I did move at a pretty slow, fairly quick pace. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, like, if it used that time as wisely as it could have.
Yeah, which is understandable. I definitely do agree. They probably could have done more to like build up the character. Some that I can definitely agree with, or at least with Sammy.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I think for me, it's like I felt her depth came with the idea that she wanted to do more but couldn't understand it, and when she finally understood things, that's when she just wanted to get GTFO.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, this is where it kind of bumps into like metaphorical versus the literal. When you have to burst your way through the chimney just to get back inside after your zombified grandma tries to kill you, that's a pretty good time to want to get the fuck out.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I get where they're going from metaphorically, but literally, I feel like anyone else would be like, no, let's get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I do agree that's a part that could have been more earned. I feel if they want to. I like what they did after that. I thought that was really well done. But yeah, I think some more character development could have been used to really sell the choices that were made in the finale.
Yeah.
That's all I can really think to say about this. Yeah, like, would you recommend this movie?
Personally, I really liked it a lot. That being said, I can understand how this can be off-putting to some people as well. Like I saw, like critics loved it. General moviegoers were a lot more divided on it, which, yeah, I get. I can totally understand why. Mm-hmm. If you want, but that being said, if you want a more cerebral horror movie, which kind of airs more on the side of drama with some horror elements, kind of like Crimson Peak, for example. Although I still say this is better than Crimson Peak. I think that was the one, the Del Toro one.
Yeah, that was the Del Toro one.
Okay. Then I'd say give this one a shot. I'd still say like this isn't going to be like on my top list of horror movies of all time, but this is definitely one I can appreciate a lot,
Sure.
especially with how it tries to educate in a metaphorical way.
Yeah, and I think it's very effective at that.
Yeah.
Like, let me be clear on one thing. Like, despite my issues with it, I'm not saying this is a bad movie.
Yeah. Because
Oh god.
Oh no, you first.
I was gonna say I actually did like it. I think it's a good movie. I think for me, just it's a there's a few things that prevent me from getting as invested into it as I would like.
Yeah. And I definitely will also agree. It's how the third act ties everything together that really makes it a worthwhile trip.
Yeah, the payoff is very, very good. Indisputably. Like, not even gonna argue that. But yeah, I've already said my piece about everything else. Sorry, go. Did you finish your final thought, or?
Yeah, I think on my final thoughts. Yeah, definitely solid piece, slow burn. How that slow burn might affect people is you're gonna get some different mileage.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just really a great story about the idea of memory as well as the care that we put into those who are kind of losing it.
Yeah. And I'm very curious to see how this movie is received by people who do have personal experiences with it outside of yourself as well.
Yeah.
Just to see if that connection can be applied more universally, and if so, that would be a great way to like kind of educate people on what the disease actually is like, because it is an important topic.
Yeah.
One that's often relegated to, oh god, someone's got to take care of grandpa, you know.
Yeah.
For diseases often treated as a burden, I guess is a better way of phrasing it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Rather than something that's worthy of compassion and sympathy.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I'm very curious to see where it has, how it'll be received by that. I'm curious to see how I kind of process it as I had more time to think about it.
Yeah.
I
think I forgot to mention that was the other thing I did kind of like was almost the reversal of positions between the mother and the daughter. Because that was the other thing I wanted to mention. Because I know that's the whole idea of how like the mother was the reluctant one, the daughter was like the really, I want to be the helpful one, I want to do something about it, and how just like as time kind of progressed, it felt like it made that switch.
To a certain extent, I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's what I was saying. Like kind of by the end of it, like you notice how the mother is trying to be more involved. Trying to say like it goes from trying to ship her to the home to saying, "Look, stay with me," and even staying like after all that chaos that happens there in the end. Whereas the daughter, obviously she starts off. It's like she goes from wanting to move in to just, as I said, kind of GTFOing.
Mm-hmm. I think that does open up a larger question, though. Is is it fair to put that on yourself too when someone you loved is in a situation? Because it's definitely not something for people who don't have the medical training to deal with that.
Exactly, and that's one of those things where that's kind of like I brought that up about the whole, having the more. Is it better to be someone who knows or someone who's impersonal but like can handle this kind of thing, who can actually give the proper care?
And it's not really. I'm not really sure. Like, I feel like the movie definitely leans towards like the person who family should take care of them. At the same time, it also makes it very clear the family has no idea what the hell they're doing.
Yeah,
and are actually, when it comes to actually stopping it from her bad behavior, are pretty bad at it.
Yeah, yeah, a little bit.
So it's kind of like I'm not really sure the movie's solution is also the correct one. But that one's more more of a subjective opinion based on how you feel.
Yeah,
people that can just be treated.
Because I think it was less about them trying to be the ones to handle it and just more like I think it was trying to, kind of portray just a whole being there in the end for them because as you saw, they were pretty obvious. It was pretty adamant. It's like, yeah, they weren't equipped to handle this, but in the end, it was just, it was like that, that it was like that piece of paper said, I am loved. It was just trying to at least show that there was still, despite that loss of self, there's still love for that self.
Okay, no, I can see that. That's a good point. See, this is the case where the more I talk about it, the more I like it. So it's kind of one of those things.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay, I didn't think about that, or that kind of flew over my head. Like, oh, okay, all right, you're starting to change my mind on this a little bit.
Hooray!
I mean, I still stand by some of my critiques, but it's like, oh, okay, those are all very valid points. I can definitely see how those are conveyed.
Yeah.
So yeah, I will bump up my score to an 8.5. There you go.
Yeah, I'd say it'd probably be about I'd say probably an 8 for me. It was about the score. Yeah.
Yeah, so like 8.5. I'll rise it up to match yours. Because you bring up some good points. So like, okay, I didn't think about that. And it comes partially from my own ignorance. This is why I'm always kind of hesitant to critique movies kind of like this that explore this kind of thing. Because like, I don't know how much of mine is like legitimate critiques versus just me not understanding the context.
Yeah, I mean that's understandable because it's kind of like how, like for example, The Accountant. You got a lot more out of that than I did.
Like another one I would point out would be Moonlight. Was I think another one where you and I did not have the proper context to really talk about that properly.
Yeah, I mean. And I remember I think I enjoyed it more because like I had seen instances of that kind of stuff that went on like through other friends.
Well, I got annoyed by the artsy fartsiness of it.
Which is fair. Which is fair.
Yeah. I think that's in the end what really bothered me about Moonlight.
Right. Okay. Which is also a fair point when it gets a little too far up there.
But I think that was definitely a case where you and I both like we are not qualified to talk about this.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like no, The Accountant's a good example of that too, because I have a lot more experience in that field than you do, so I get more like, oh, okay, I recognize that piece, I can see how those come together. I also know the movie did not do well in terms of talking about that matter.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's like, hey, Dad, when the character is very clearly not good with metaphors, takes it very literal. Maybe don't use a metaphor to describe how to toughen up.
Yeah.
I still remember that, to be honest.
Yeah. I just remember for me it was like certain plot points just feeling really contrived that bugged the crap out of me.
That's totally valid about that movie
also, too. Although I remember also laughing at Anna Kendrick getting turned on by math.
Oh yeah. That was the best part. I completely forgot about it.
The lower lip bite. I remember we just both lost it. Oh my god.
We can all dream. Remember, guys, the older you get, the more the things you don't think are appealing suddenly become a lot more appealing. Goes to like, I want a hot stud to I want someone who's fucking smart. Gotta wait it out, guys. Gotta wait it out.
Yeah, put that X over my Y.
You know what happens when that happens, baby? We create a slope.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, baby. Find my X.
Solve for Y.
You never do. What a respectful tangent for a video talking about dementia and topics we don't fully understand.
And then going to sex math jokes. We are great people.
We are such good people. Let's talk about dyslexia now that we're at it.
Oh, I hate dyslexia. It screws me so much. But it makes for some really fun things sometimes.
Is there a story attached to that, Grant?
Oh, no. There's plenty of instances where I misread something and it just makes a very dirty statement. Like, I can't think of any in particular, but, like, there's just lots of instances where it's just, like... I've never been officially diagnosed, but I'm pretty sure I have, like, a mild form, because, like, there are lots of cases where I'll read something and the letters flip here and there.
Yeah, that's like
it's kind of like in Family Guy, the... dyslexic movie night. Felch instead of Fletch.
I don't remember that. But yeah, overall, it's a good movie.
Yeah.
And apparently this one you have to sit on for a minute before you should open your big dumb mouth about it. So yeah, I like it. I would recommend it the more I think about it. I still stand with some of my critiques, but overall it's a good message. It's a good movie that tackles a difficult subject well.
Yeah. So yeah, just go in knowing it's going to be a slow burn. That they really saved the horror for like the last act, and kind of knowing what the story is trying to tell. And I think you'll have a good time with it.
And it's not even, and like I would even say it's not a really good idea to think about it in horror terms because it's not really a horror movie. Again, at least not in their traditional sense. So yeah, I would not go into this expecting to be scary in any way because it's really not. But beyond that, if you're there for the subject matter, I think you'll get what you're looking for.
Yeah.
So I think that's all we have for this one. We still got to watch the Velocipaster. And I think there was the one you suggested.
Yeah, that John Henry movie with Ludacris and Terry Crews.
Yeah, because I guess that's the one we missed, and I guess we're like at this point we're kind of checking out the no streaming rules. So, if there's anything else that came out this year that you guys want us to check out, let us know. That's how we watched Hamilton and the Willoughbys. So,
how was that?
Willoughbys? A little manic.
That's the vibe I got.
Because there are literally like 5 different plots, and you don't realize. Like it was one of those things. I just described it to Matt, who was the one who watched it with me, and it was like, you say it like that. It really does feel like the movie had like 5-10 plots. I'm still good overall. Like for what it is, like it's okay. It was enjoyable enough, but it was definitely like, oh my god, this movie is manic as fuck. But yeah, so we'll watch whatever we get to next week. And yeah, that's all I really have. You got any final thoughts, last words?
Not really. I think I kind of said all I can say.
All right, cool. Well, thank you guys for watching. See you later.